Welcome to all. 21st century skills is now becoming very essential not only in the educational sector but in practice. In practice, I mean in the lived context of all individuals. The discussion today is focusing upon one of the skills, that is critical thinking. This topic belongs to the course MAAE 006 Adult Learning and 21st Century Skills. And this course is part of the program Master of Arts in Adult Education. All of us know about the characteristics of adult learners. Why to say more? When we think about our own study habits, our own pattern of cognitive development, our own pattern of attaining skills. How much change has happened from the earlier rote memorization to the construction of knowledge. Let us see the 21st century skills as proposed in NEP 2020 also. There we can categorize it as the information skills, the learning skills, as well as the media and literacy skills. And this critical thinking is one of the learning skills which is essential not only for the school stage but also in the higher stage, as I stated earlier, in the lived experiences or in the lived context of all individuals. The objectives of today's session, it is to explain the meaning, nature and scope of critical thinking, to appreciate the essence of critical thinking and to discuss different skills required for critical thinking among adults. Let us see what is the meaning of critical thinking. All of us know about what is a thinking. The thinking has different forms. It has reflective thinking, critical thinking, different forms. But let us go through some of the definitions given by writers. The definition given by Scriven and Pohl can be read thus: critical thinking is the intellectually disciplined process of actively and skillfully conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, or evaluating information gathered from or generated by observation, experience, reflection, reasoning, or communication as a guide to belief and action. When we go through this definition, we can see some of the components that are important in the aspect of critical thinking. That we have to conceptualize, we have to apply our knowledge, we have to analyze, and then synthesizing and evaluating. So coming to the other definition stated by the Center for Critical Thinking, that critical thinking, it is the ability to think about one's thinking in such a way as to recognize its strengths and weaknesses, and as a result, it recasts the thinking in improved form. So here, when we look at the definition, we can see that it states that thinking about one's thinking. There comes the importance of metacognition, where we will discuss later on. And then we can see that this critical thinking, it involves some of the components like asking questions, defining a problem, examining evidence, analyzing assumptions and biases, avoiding emotional reasoning, avoiding oversimplification, considering other interpretations, and tolerating ambiguity. So here itself we can see the other components that are arising in the aspect of critical thinking. Now let us go through the relevance of critical thinking. What are the relevance? Why critical thinking is very important? The first one, when we look at it, we can see that it is crucial for the economy. How is it crucial for the economy? So in this context, we can state that the economy is facing fast growing changes where it has to meet the demand and the supply of all consumers, and the production, it is to be done in different ways. And in this growing and fast economy, the normal thinking is not enough. There occurs the critical thinking. Take an example for a product, how to make it more demand in the market. For this aspect, critical thinking is very much important, that how to produce in a different way where it can attract the consumers. So this critical thinking, it is crucial for the economy. The second aspect, that is improved language and presentation skills. Why critical thinking is important in the educational context or in the classroom context? That language is very much important. And when we think about the language, how to use, when to use and what to use, there we can see that the improvement in the language. And then how to present, that it may attract to others. So every teacher may teach in the class, but there are some teachers that we will remember forever. That is because of their presentation skills. So the adult learners, as I stated, that the characteristics of adult learners, they are different from the child or the children. So what is important is that we have to use different types of skills, that is important. And the next aspect that is important, relevant for critical thinking, it promotes creativity. So what we know that creativity, what do we mean by creativity? It is the ability to create in a new way or to produce a thing in a novel way. So here, in order to develop creativity, the convergent thinking is not enough. What is important? The divergent thinking is also important. So for getting this divergent thinking, critical thinking is very much important. We have to think the aspect not in one way, that different perspective taking is very much important. The next relevant of critical thinking, that is important for self-reflection. As I stated earlier that the critical thinking is important for one's own thinking. When we discuss the definition, we can see that it is the ability to think about the thinking, or we can state that it is the ability to think about the thought process. So here, what is important, that is self-reflection. When one wants to reflect one's own, they have to go back for their thought process. How do they achieve the conclusion? That is very much important. Then comes the next component, that is the basis of science and democracy. Why we have taken the subject science? We know that it includes variety of evidences, not only facts. Just facts will not serve the purpose of science. It should be supported by evidences, and some kind of experiments is needed. While going through these experiments or for proving the evidence, just thinking is not enough. Critical thinking is very much important. Then comes the democracy. We know that in democracy, it is the rule of the people. So the people will think, not only thinking, they will pour out their critical thinking in terms of the ruling institution. So what is important here, we can see that critical thinking is relevant not only in the information field or the education field. As I stated, it is important in the lived context of all individuals. While coming to the next theme, that is the benefits of critical thinking, just we can list it out as career success, better decision making, well-informed opinions, better citizens, enhances problem-solving skills, promotes curiosity, crucial life skill. So these are some of the benefits of critical thinking. When we try to delve into the detail of each aspect, let us take the first aspect, that is career success. When we look around, we can see different kinds of professions which include lawyers, scientists, teachers, doctors, technocrats. So different employers we can see where it requires for the successful career path, what is important is critical thinking. Then comes the second benefit, that is better decision making. We know that though it is at home or in the workplace, we have to take important decisions. And these decisions, it is not just at the superficial level. It should be discussed with different individuals. And in the case of adult context, we can see that the adults, they are interacting with the different individuals, and if they are learners also, their priorities are different. So they have to take important decisions. So for taking these decisions, what is important? Critical thinking is very much important. Then comes the well-informed opinions. What does it mean, the well-informed opinions? We can see that the opinion just it is coming is not enough. It should be accepted by all, and there may be more brains discussing about a particular solution. So the well-informed opinions, it also needs critical thinking. The next thing, that is better citizens. We know that today's generation will become, today's children will become the tomorrow's lawmakers or the ruling individuals of the nation. So what is important is that we have to make the individuals better citizens of a country. In order to become better citizens, what is important? They have to take good decisions. As stated, in order to take good decisions, what is important? Critical thinking is important. Coming to the next benefit, that is enhances problem-solving skills. We know that in everyday aspect, we are confronting with different problems where it requires different problem-solving skills. And the problem, we have to find the solution also. Then comes promotes curiosity. We know that the mindset, whether it is children or adult learners, they are always curious to know more and how it happens and how it takes place. For this aspect also, critical thinking is very much important. Then we can observe that nowadays, to live successfully, what is important? Life skills are important. So this critical thinking is crucial for life skills. So in life, as stated, all the aspects what we have discussed, we have to face with this, and for taking important decision or to solve problems or to communicate effectively, what is important? The critical thinking is very much important. And we have discussed about the definitions, the relevance of critical thinking, and the benefits of critical thinking. Coming to the next aspects, we can see that there are different characteristics of critical thinking. When we look at the characteristics of critical thinking, we can classify it as analyzing assumptions and biases, avoiding emotional reasoning, avoiding oversimplification, tolerating ambiguity, metacognition, reasoning, different point of view, and argument. So what does each aspect denote? There we can state that the first aspect, that is analyzing assumptions and biases. Suppose a problem comes, first we have to understand the concept, what is underlying it. After understanding the concepts, we have to analyze the assumptions and the biases. Whether the decisions we cannot take based on the prejudice and bias, so we have to find out the different statements and the assumptions that are coming. And there may be the arguments also, different kinds of argument. When we look at critical thinking, we can state that it includes the statement and the argument, statement and the assumptions. So all these things are important. For example, in the case of statement and argument, the statement is like this, that all individuals who attain 18 years of age, they have the right to vote. So here, maybe the argument, it is maybe stated thus, lowering the voting age may increase the participation of youth in the process of making government. Look at the two things, that is the statement and the argument. Based on the statement, the question arises whether the argument is valid or not. When we look at the statement, it is stating about the age of the citizens where they can or apply their right to vote or the voting franchise. But when we look at the argument, we can see that it is speaking about lowering of voting age. There is a contradiction between the statement and the argument. So here, in critical thinking, we have to be very careful upon the statement and the argument, the statement and the assumptions. The second characteristics, that is avoiding emotional reasoning. Many times, what happens when issue arises, we may be affected by it emotionally. When we are in the emotional state, we should not take any decision because the decision may not be correct. It is based upon the emotional temperament. So in order to avoid the emotional reasoning, what is important? Critical thinking is very much important. Coming to the next aspect, that is avoiding oversimplification. We cannot take anything in a simplified form and without going into the different perspective. So oversimplification, in order to avoid critical thinking, is very much important. Coming to the next characteristics, that is tolerating ambiguity. Something may not be clear, but whatever to be conveyed, it should be clear. So the ambiguitiness should be resolved. For this aspect, critical thinking is very much important. And the next characteristics, that is metacognition. as discussed earlier, it is thinking about one's own thinking. When we look at the critical thinking, we feel that while we go through the different definitions also, we can state that critical thinking, it is the ability to think about one's own thinking, where it emphasizes the characteristics of metacognition. Coming to the next characteristics of critical thinking, that is reasoning. Just reasoning is not enough. Reasoning with valid proof, that is important. Coming to the next aspect, that is different point of view. When we think of this critical thinking, we can state that different point of view, that is perspective taking, is very much important. We have to take the perspective not only of one person, we have to think in terms of other person also. Coming to the next aspect, that is argument. What is important? That valid decision making, it includes that critical thinking is very much important. So in order to argue in favor of or against what is important, critical thinking is important. Coming to the next aspect, that is different skill sets needed for critical thinking. What are the skill sets that are needed for critical thinking? When we look at the different skill sets or critical thinking skills, we can categorize it as skills of analysis, skills of synthesizing information, skills of creativity, skills of open-mindedness, skills of self-regulation, skills of explanation, skills of communication, skills of problem solving, skills of inference, skills of interpretation. So there are varieties of skills where surrounded by critical thinking. So this critical thinking, it is not a superficial thing where it includes different kinds of subset of skills. Different skills are there, and when we go through each skill, there are different subsets. When we take the skills of analysis, analyzing a situation or an event or a text, all this analysis can be done. So going this analyzing, it must go into the deeper meaning of all aspects. And in the skills of analyzing, what is the inference may be coming, the observation is important, and the synthesizing is important. All the things will come in the skills of analysis. The second skill, that is the skills of synthesizing information. So first a problem comes, we have understand the concept, we have analyzed it, and then we have to, so different observations may arise. Based on this observation, the next important thing is synthesizing information. Until and unless we synthesize the information, we cannot get a coherent idea of that aspect. Coming to the next skill set, that is skills of creativity, where we can see that the innovativeness should be there, the novel situation or the novel idea. For this aspect itself, we can see it needs divergent thinking and then taking the perspective of everything. So many sub-skill set are included in the skills of creativity. Then come skills of open-mindedness. So open-mindedness is very much essential in the aspect of critical thinking. With prejudices or biases or with a closed mind, we cannot approach a solution or a situation or an event. So open-mindedness in thought, in approach, in words, everything is very much important. Coming to the next characteristics, that is the skills of self-regulation. What do we mean by this self-regulation? That sometimes the situation is not in favoring, but we have to control our emotions. Already we have discussed that avoiding emotional reasoning is very much important. And in self-regulation, we have to control our emotions, our mood and everything. Then the skills of explanation, where explaining, we know that just giving a one response or an immediate response is not enough. Explanation with valid evidences is very much important. Coming to the next skills, that is the skills of communication. So communication is an important aspect where we think of adult learning. So adult learners should be communicated in a proper way because they are informed citizens and they may be arising different kinds of queries. So communication, it should clear and it includes proper listening, and then it should be synthesizing the words, and the communication, it includes both verbal and non-verbal communication. Coming to the skill of problem solving, we can see that this problem solving also should be done in different skill set. So analyzing the situation and then taking the different aspects of the thing. Then comes skills of inference. So suppose an issue comes, we have to think of the different aspects. So infer some kind of assumptions. So skill of inference also contain some kind of sub-skills. Then the skills of interpretation. So after coming through all aspects, we can see that we have to interpret. For this also, we need many sub-skills. So in today's discussion, we have focused upon what is critical thinking, why is it important, and the definitions. And from the definitions, we come to the point of relevance of critical thinking, the benefits of critical thinking, as well. At last, we focus upon the characteristics of critical thinking, and then we come to the point of critical thinking skills. Hope that as informed citizens, we can develop critical thinking as an essential skill, not only in education field, but in everyday life. Thank you.